Hello, BookShark BootCamp. It's your community manager, Jana, and today is February Live. If you can believe, it's already almost the middle of February. For some, it's the month of love. For others, it's a month of dread. My guest, Stephanie Hanson, and I are going to be talking about banishing the winter blues, why February can feel so arduous, why we get really stuck in a rut in the month of February. We have both experienced it in our own homeschool lives. Stephanie is a work associate. She is a personal friend. She is a curriculum developer and is currently the brain behind StoryComb Press. I'm going to let her talk about that a little bit more, but just know that today we are really hoping to just encourage you that what you're feeling is legitimate. We're going to have some reasons as to why you're going to be feeling it and what you can do to kind of break out of this feeling of funk for some. Maybe it's just get comfortable sitting in the funk for others. I used to be one of those fake it till you make it kind of people, and while sometimes that still applies, I am giving myself more grace in 2026, and I hope to extend that grace to you. That no matter where you're at right now, how you're feeling in your homeschool journey, your personal life, you are going to be okay. And we're going to talk you through some of our experiences during this month of potential dread. So, without further ado, let me welcome Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jana. Like you said, I have also experienced the February doldrums. I am, while not currently homeschooling, spent 7 years in the homeschool trenches. My oldest is now 13. I also have an 11-year-old and a 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And whether you're homeschooling or not, February sure can be brutal, especially for those of us who live in places where it gets cold, it's still dark. We have worked through the enthusiasm of a new school year. We've gotten through the holidays, and now we are just looking forward to spring. I know a lot of us are probably already looking forward to next year, our plans for next year. I remember February was when like the new curriculum looked kind of shiny, but I wasn't ready to take the dive yet. So I'm excited to talk about ways to make February a better month.
Even some of us who don't live in super cold weather, it is still a time of shorter days. I have actually been to Southern California during this time. It's like it was supposed to be this like paradise, and they still had shorter days, and they still had the rain come through, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So I think no matter where you're at, you're definitely affected by the weather during this time of year. And to mention this idea of seasonal affective disorder. Like, I wasn't aware of it in my younger years. I wish I would have because it really would have helped explain why I felt the way I felt during this time period. But I want to encourage our families that to look that up if they are thinking that maybe there's something going on a little bit deeper than just feeling stuck in a rut or can't get outside. It's definitely a thing. People are affected by it, and there's really simple ways that you can help your symptoms with that. So, that getting out of the way. Stephanie, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges in your family during this time?
I think, we tend to hunker down in the winter, which I think is a really good thing. I think it's a natural seasonality for us to kind of hunker down. At the same time, I'm going to be perfectly honest, and some of us get a little sick of each other. As homeschool families, we are together a lot. And so if we're all feeling sort of the seasonal crankies, then that just exacerbates any sort of natural tensions. And, Jana, I know you have multiple kids, and I'm sure your kids never fought. They always got along with each other beautifully. But my children, when we can't get outside as much as we would like, we don't maybe have as many activities going on, they tend to get in each other's hair a lot. And I would say that's probably our biggest challenge is that none of us are really at our mood best, and we're still all together.
I would add to that in January, we pack up all of the holiday decorations and your house feels a little sterile, but you have this newness. You'd mentioned like the newness of a new year, and we have these goals. We set these intentions, and let's be honest, if you can even get to February with some of these things, you're doing pretty well. So it's a natural dip. There is really nothing necessarily to look forward to. You had mentioned that new curriculum starts showing up in ads in your social media ads. Maybe they still send you a catalog in the mail, but you're maybe triggered by the fact that you're not as far along in the curriculum that you have, and you're supposed to start thinking about new stuff in next year.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. One of the memes that I saw online really made me laugh is that the second Friday in January is official Quitters Day. And if it's not that day, then maybe it's February 1st. And yes, a lot of us put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be on track. And one of the things that I had to always remind myself as a former public school teacher is that whether we're home educators or public school teachers, we don't have a real pressure to finish the curriculum. If you were studying history in school, how many times did you get to the end of the history book or the math book? Um, whether we're home educators or public school educators, we have these lofty expectations of how much we can accomplish in a year, and it is human to not reach those lofty and perhaps unrealistic goals. And it's okay to give ourselves grace.
I thought when you said that we're human and we're not, and my instant thought was we don't finish. There's a lot of things that we just don't finish. How many of us have projects undone? I am a crocheter and a knitter, and so I have these projects. And in the past, I used to look at them and be like, what is wrong with you? Why can't you finish something? And now it's like, you know what? That was for a season, or I thought I was going to do that. And it doesn't suit me right now. And maybe I'll come back to it and maybe I won't. But that's all part of the process. And I think that same mentality can be put toward homeschool. It's you're in the day to day, you have your schedules, you have your expectations. There is a caveat for those who are reporting to more strict and mandated homeschool rules. But I had said in a live in the past couple months that if you are using or checking out curriculum and you don't think that you're going to get finished, you do have permission with BookShark to go ahead and photocopy the last few weeks so that if you do have to send the stuff back, you don't feel that added pressure of now we have to figure out how to get 16 days done in the 5 days we have left. Like looking ahead and just setting yourself up with some cushion, with some there's a word that I talk about when I'm thinking of my time, and it's just that idea of making sure you add in margin at the end. And that's
Mhm.
super helpful, I think, for parents who are going, it's February, I'm only in week whatever, I'm supposed to be in week whatever, and this is life.
And I think, part of the beauty of homeschooling for many of us, and I'll acknowledge this is not everybody, but for many of us, flexibility is a big part of why we chose homeschooling and the ability to take time and meet the needs of our kids who maybe are struggling this time of year, or take the time to be cozy and re-spark the love of learning that many of us hope to preserve through homeschooling. It's a great time to cozy up with books under blankets, have some tea. I was just reflecting with my 13-year-old recently about how poetry tea time was such a vital tradition, and this is a really great time of year to lean into those types of things and acknowledge that learning, even if we have to report, learning can happen in a lot of different ways. and thinking about being intentional with our time in February while not being wedded to the curriculum.
What a great idea. The the kind of focusing in on maybe something that you haven't focused on so it feels a little bit fresher. I know with BookShark poetry when I when I was in the day-to-day, that was one that just didn't get done. I it kind of was pushed down at the to the bottom of the list. Another one is like timeline and figures. I mean, what a great time to review your year and go ahead and take that stuff out and give them something to do with their hands and that's creative because they need to get that energy out in some way and a lot of us are kind of stuck more in home. It's the flu season, it's cold season, all of those things. There's ways that you can be creative, still be learning, and still make it an adventure. I love that you mentioned the tea time. And the other thing, it play some games. I mean, what gets your kids more excited than to say, we're not doing school today. We are just having a game day. I mean, that's like crazy.
It's it's wild, and so many of the games that are beloved in my family are such educational games, but if I pull them out, now we're not homeschooling anymore. They still love these games. I mean, election night is a serious favorite in our house, and my kids can all tell you the importance of California to the Electoral College, which is wild. Or bird bingo. They can name so many birds because of just this really beautiful game. So I'm a huge fan of game schooling to get through February.
Well, and you can even do so much math. I know we kind of get sick of, and maybe depending on your family of Monopoly, but that's just like one of the go-tos for sure. Our family actually won't even touch Monopoly anymore because I think we're all just like, no. But for geography, we play Ticket to Ride. That's
Oh yeah.
we love that one. There's
Hmm.
actually a new game that my college daughter brought home over the holidays, and it's called Dutch Blitz, and it's a card game.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's great just about sequencing and numbers and dexterity. And, it's fast paced, it's moving. And don't get me wrong, there's some hurt feelings when somebody card takes your spot because you weren't just quite quick enough. But it's those types of games that create bonding, that do create an adventure of learning because it is still learning. There's so many benefits to playing games in this time when maybe you're just setting something aside. And I will say, AI has its problems. We're not really going to even touch that. But the benefits of putting in, create me a, trivia game around
Mhm.
this or this character or this time period, and it'll spit you out some really cool ideas so that you don't even have to work to get some of this stuff to come out.
Absolutely. Recently we were looking for new card games to pick up, and I did a quick Google search and couldn't find what I was looking for. And then, I did ask AI. So it does have its place. And you were mentioning math games, and I'm just going to put a quick plug for Dungeons and Dragons in there. It's a really good way to work on, you have to use order of operations to calculate different things. There's multiplication and addition, and then there's a really great storytelling element to it as well. For those who might not be familiar, you're making up a story and building characters as you go. There's a lot of critical thinking, so that's another good February one to pick up. I know there's some awesome online classes if it's a little intimidating.
Yeah, there's so many videos now to help you. We have a game called Catan, and I have had it for years. I have yet to figure out how to play this game. And I'm I've watched a few videos. I'm one of those people like needs to watch a video but then has to walk through it. So just so many things. Even just a regular deck of cards. I know one of our math partners, Right Start Math, has tons of games to play with just a regular deck of cards, different variations of like War and Go Fish that are calculated and really helping with number sense. There's just so many things out there that you're still doing school, you're making learning an adventure. I would say finally, and maybe first and foremost, but we'll talk about it finally, is this idea of just reading, of reading aloud, reading together. creating the funny voices and maybe the scenes from what you've read to really help solidify the concepts and the stories and not so much to me the dates and the times, but I think that happens naturally when you're researching your character or maybe making a character sketch that you're not necessarily going to put on a play for your family, but just taking the story and making it more real life. What are some of your family's favorite read alouds that you guys have done over the years, Stephanie?
Oh my gosh. Um, so we're also a big audiobook family, maybe more even than reading aloud. I absolutely adore the Enchanted Forest Chronicles series, which takes fairy tale tropes and turns them over on their heads in a thousand different ways. They're very clever, very funny, accessible to the younger members of the family because ultimately it is a fairy tale adventure story, but with so much humor that is great for adults listening along. Um, and let's see, what are some of our other favorites? Winter Frost is a great cozy winter story. It is technically takes place at Christmas Eve time, but it's utterly delightful. And then we still are not tired of picture books. Even at 13 years old, when I was a public school teacher, we talked a lot about whether or not you should use picture books in the upper level classroom. And to get a little nerdy for a moment, the research shows that picture books often present more advanced vocabulary than, say, a middle grades novel might have on its own. And they're a really great opportunity to explore mentor texts and learn styles of writing. One of my plugs here is going to be A Pig Parade is a Terrible Idea. If you are looking to teach your kid how to write a persuasive essay, just read them this book in February. Come back to the essay part later if you want to, but it is a perfect persuasive essay and it is utterly hilarious and our family never gets tired of this book.
I wonder why most of us just assume that once our children are able to read, we wouldn't even touch a picture book. But we all know that our brains still ignite with excitement and creativity when we are looking at colorful illustrations that are maybe not letting us create the picture in our own mind. It's directing us a little bit more. But then, like you had mentioned, we can then focus a little bit more on what's being said because our
Mhm.
brains aren't trying to create the picture while we're listening to it. I also love audiobooks. It's not a secret in this group that reading aloud is probably one of my least favorite things to do. And so I enjoy getting the audiobooks so that we all can have a shared experience in that. There are so many books that Bookshark gives when you're doing our history, our science, our language arts. I fear that some people will stray from finding something that they enjoy because they're doing something they have to do. If that is the case, I want to give families permission to maybe just take some time in February, find something that everybody is going to enjoy, that there's a spark of interest. I know I have some friends that they really enjoyed listening to some Spy Kid books with their kids. There's so many things that it's okay if you need to take a step back and replace it with something else. Also, there are so many fun books written about history, and maybe you're starting into one and it's not really clicking for you. I've always said I give my kids a veto each semester, so find something that's just going to be fun and exciting for you. And don't be afraid that if you try something new and it's not a good fit, just stop and find something else. Life is too short in a lot of things to have to endure something that you're trying to pursue for pleasure and adventure when it's just not fun. Now, that being said, I do make my family take these hikes that they really wish I would just stop and turn around, but I get my crazy eyes and I have to finish because that's just who I am in those things. It's easier to push to finish when other people are following you versus when you're just crocheting or knitting on your own. You could just put stuff down very quickly.
That's true. And then sometimes, we need somebody pushing us. So, sometimes peer pressure is a good thing.
It
Uh,
is.
what you're saying about history really resonated with me. And I was thinking about how there's this huge trend in adult literature right now in World War II. I mean, how many World War II novels have been really popular right now? And we as adults, we are choosing to read this. And we may or may not consider ourselves history buffs, but ultimately, story draws us in. And then along the way, we are learning these incredible real places, maybe or maybe not real people. And so it's this opportunity to open new windows and spark curiosity in us that maybe we didn't even know was there.
I have found that even replacing a book with a movie about these very topics, yeah, it's going to spark a different part of the brain, but it is definitely a medium that is used even in public education. I remember they'd roll that card in and it'd be like, "Yay, we're going to watch a film." And sometimes they're incredibly cheesy and sometimes they had nothing to do with whatever we were doing. I think the teacher just like needed a break that day. I'm not sure how they got permission for that. But as parents, as homeschool parents, we can give ourselves permission. I know there are times where I've said, I've switched out one of our read alouds if there was a movie. And I said, you know what? We're not going to read the book. It's okay. It was a way to kind of like catch up. We're just going to watch the movie. And then when we went through some of the questions and some of the activities, if it wasn't touched on in the movie, then we kind of created our own thing and made it our own. And those were the times I think the children really got excited because it was like almost like breaking the rules in a sense, or which, I'm a rule follower mostly, but it's getting creative and showing our kids that we're not just doing this at home, this prescribed thing that someone told us to do, and we've now put ourselves in another rigid box. Homeschool is supposed to be flexible, like you mentioned in the beginning. It's supposed to foster a love of learning. It's supposed to be adventurous. So, put the book down if you need to and find a movie or a documentary or something else that's just a different medium, and it's giving you very similar information. And if you get worried, like, I'm not going to have the right questions to ask because we didn't do the exact thing, don't worry about it. Just have your kids talk about what did they like. Have your kids talk about the fact that you let them do something different. I mean, that conversation in and of itself is going to be very educational. There's just so many things that homeschool should never feel tiresome. It should never feel like a duty. We should always wake up and be like, "Oh my gosh, what is today going to bring?" But we all
Yes.
know that reality sets in. And we do have things that we feel like we must get done. That is part of life. So, how can we tweak it and do things just a little bit differently, especially in a month that's hard for a lot of people? So, in closing, Stephanie, what are just a few things that you can think of that parents can do to really help them not necessarily thrive in February? Because, again, I think giving ourselves permission to just be uncomfortable and be in a funk is okay.
Yes. I think that last part is really important, is that recognizing that you're not alone this time of year. Many of us are struggling with feeling in a funk, having those winter blues that, we're talking about banishing, and it's okay if they're still around a little bit. And remembering your reasons for homeschooling. You mentioned lifelong learning and curiosity. That is how I measured my success in homeschooling. And although I'm not homeschooling anymore, I look back and I can say, yes, we had success homeschooling because my kids are still curious. They still love learning. Even on the days when they don't love school itself, they still love learning. And so remembering in February, if all you do is keep curiosity alive, I think that's a successful February.
Oh, I think that is such great advice. I want to like hashtag meme that, maybe tattoo it. If you can keep curiosity alive in February, that is definitely success. One more thing before we go. We talked a little bit about your experience in curriculum development. So, what are you working on?
So I am developing a new curriculum series that is a lot about learning through literature, a combination of contemporary and classical literature for teens. So for 13 and up, StoryComb Press is going to be putting out magazines, new editions of books, and some experiential learning to go with it to help our learners be readers, writers, and critical thinkers.
That is amazing. I have to tell our audience. So, Stephanie worked for a different company previously, and it was very hands-on.
Yes.
And in my knit class, in my knit group from my community, somebody had posted a video of what's the thing that you
A
walked around
drops,
with?
the drop spindle.
Yes, the drop spindle.
Yes.
Now, some of these
Yes.
ladies actually have a spindle and they spin their own yarn, they dye it, like they are very into this. And so she posted this video of the drop spindle, and I said, "Wait, I have a friend and she used to walk around with that." And it was the most amazing thing. And so they were kind of
Yes.
curious as to the history of that. And it sparked this conversation. And here I am, almost 48, talking about history with a group of ladies who our common denominator is fiber arts is it, and it was just so exciting. And I just say to my kids, like, see, it's all around us. It doesn't have to just be in the books. We were driving
Yes.
yesterday to see a car for my college-age daughter. We're trying to find her car, and we had driven past a Civil War museum. And I said, "Oh, I made your dad drive an hour and a half out here the other day to watch a cannon be fired." And there was some reenactment, and my daughter just laughed, and I was like, there's so much around us. It's all around it. It's not, in a bubble. It's not just
Mhm.
academia. It is life. And so if we can, to quote Stephanie, keep curiosity alive in February, then I think that is definitely a win. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jana. It was really a pleasure, and good luck, everybody, in February.
That's for sure. All right, you guys, our February Q&A live will be next week, so make sure to post some questions that we can get answered for you and have a great February, I think the 11th. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.